Welcome to another episode of HAH British Cars. This is more on the TR2 Restoration. I've been working on the front suspension, and I just thought I'd go over changing the lower A-arm front bushing, which is the one that goes into the trunnion. So I'll show you it. This is the lower A-arm, and in the back it gets nylon bushings with steel sleeves. It's actually a TR3 spec, but it's been retrofitted onto my particular TR2. And this is the front end, which actually sits in the car like this. But there's a bimetallic bushing in here that's really, it's pushed in, it's very, very tight. So it's a real bear to try to hammer out because there's not much to grab a hold of here. So what I've been doing is mounting it in the vise, like so. There we go. I'll take my hacksaw and I'll pop the blade off one side and pass it through the bushing. So here's the blade through the bushing. Now ideally you would cut only through the bushing. There's a soft surface and a steel outer liner. That's just about impossible, but I'm not going to cut any more than I can. But even if you put a small notch in this outer surface, because this bushing has a steel outer liner, it will bridge that gap because it's not really loaded that heavily. So now it's just a matter of cutting it out. So you want to get your saw nice and square. Nice even strokes. Nice even strokes. And we'll get back to you when I get this sawed in a bit. Well, as you can see, we did a pretty good job on this side. And just a little bit into the material on that side. So now we just need to knock this out. So here's the bushing pushed out. Actually made a couple of relief cuts in here and it never actually quite passed through it, so I've not marred this at all, but by taking 3 cuts, one of them actually on the seam of the bushing, which is exactly opposite the grease feed hole over here, and it came out. I just used this is just about a perfect size. It's just a touch on the small side, but it's also an aftermarket or an off name extension, so if you used a good extension, it'd probably be about the right size. So we just need to finish cleaning this up, and then it'll be time to push a new one in. So here's the bushings. So it's a steel outer with some sort of a softer inner material, some sort of bed material, or I don't know what exactly. As you can see, it's split, and there's also an oil hole, so I put a couple of marks with a felt pen there so I can see them, and I'm just going to use, this is from a bearing installation kit, Harbor Freight. We'll use that so we don't have to press directly on the bushing with the press. We're going to use the 30-ton press to put that in. So this is the end of the bushing that's going to go in. And the holes are just straight and they're clean, so I pushed the old bearings out. You can see, well, at least I can, there's a dark mark just there, which is the hole with some grease in it from there. So by having that line on there, it'll just make it easier to line that up on there. So I'm going to set this up on the press and then we'll let you see. Alright, so I've got all that square and the holes lined up. I suppose even if you made a mistake, you'd always take the grease fitting out and then just drill a new hole. But it's always nice to have it right. And here we go. As you can see, that's just sliding in quite nicely. Just having to make sure that the upper plate doesn't run into the arm. And there it is, it's flush. So that's it. Easy as that. So there it is, you can just see the brass edge there. And then this is tight right now because as this went in, it tightened on that. So I'm going to knock that out, and then we're going to see how it fits on the trunnions, and then we'll ream it out to fit. So this is one of my new adjustable reamers. This fits in a standard tap handle. What it is, there's a collar here and a collar there, and these flutes fit into tapered slots. So the further you come this way, the smaller the diameter, and as you move it up the line, it gets bigger. So I've set this now so that it's just snug in here. And then we're going to put a little bit of oil in here and give it its first turn. So I'm just using PB plaster because it happened to be handy. But any kind of a light oil will work, but you don't want to do it dry, that's for sure. So just spray a bit in there. And we'll just give it a turn. That's the first pass. And you can see it took just a little bit of material off. And then we'll go dry fit this again. And it's still too tight, so I have to move the flutes up the shaft and do it again. So I'm going to do that a little bit, and then we'll get back to you. So I've made a couple of passes now, we're getting close. What I found is that one turn of the collar, this ream must be slightly tapered, a couple of thousandths maybe. So one turn of the collar, if you got to here, will bring it back to there. So, and that's funny because the sonometric size is not standard. They just must have put some flats on it. So, there's one turn. Just make sure that it's snug. I did find that it seems to cut more smoothly, turning counterclockwise. I don't know if that's in design or just how this one came out, or I don't know. I've not used a set of these before, so I'm learning with you. So let's bring you down. So you can see I put this in the vise too because it's just a lot easier using the T-handle with two hands. So when I went clockwise, it just kind of chattered a little bit. So I just tried it the other way, and it just, as you can see, it cuts a lot smoother this way. And I actually went so a couple more passes, and it just fits. And it doesn't bind. A couple of thousandths clearance, looks good. So just have to do that again for this side, and then twice more for the left side. This was the right, and we'll be done. So my friend Dennis dropped off the engine for me. This is the original engine for the TR2, and it actually came apart fairly readily. The head wasn't frozen onto the studs, because usually they get some rust in this area and the heads freeze on. So the head lifted off, which is fortunate, because these studs were a real bugger. I really think that whoever put this together last torqued these into the engine. And of course, because when they tap these, it leaves a little taper at the bottom. It really wedged them in tight, and then they've been in there. It's been in the shed at my other house since 1996, so that's what, 26 years, and it was out in the field before that, so it was a long time. I was surprised. The pistons came out of the liners pretty good, and the liners came out of the block about as easy as any that I've had. I've had somebody really hit the beat on, and these, I mean, you still have to hit them with a hammer to get them out, but I drifted them out. The rest, everything else came apart. The cam doesn't look too bad, but I haven't taken it out yet. And I found the main bearing, the lower caps. We found 2 sets, so I got to figure out which set goes with this, because they're all unique, because they put the caps in and then they line bore it, so they do change. And then we have the head here. This being a TR2 head, it's what they call the low port head. That's LOW port. So what it is these intake ports on the later cars, they're higher up. Makes them flow better into the valve. So as you can see, they're offset. These are the exhaust, that's the intake. And as you can see that there's a certain amount of offset, but on the later style heads, it's more pronounced. So it's a head that's unique to the TR2. It's probably what's on the earlier Vanguards and stuff, but I don't know that for sure. And it doesn't look too bad. Whoever did the valve job last did not put hardened seats in, so I'll probably send the head off and get that done. And I'll probably go ahead and buy all new valves for it and springs, because I mean this stuff's just so old and it's not particularly expensive. So we'll do that. These were the pistons. Most of them were good. I had one of them had a bit of water in it, and those ones the rings are stuck in, but the rest, you know, just looks like normal engine wear. And I think these are probably 84 millimeter, I think, is stock. I think this engine is 1,999 cc's, whereas the later cars, TR3s, TR4s, are just under 2.2 liters. I think they're 2186, but don't quote me on that. So that's that done. I built this dam around this one stud that wouldn't come out, and I'm putting some penetrating oil to hopefully go down. The studs on this are different lengths. This long stud is the kind that goes here. So, you know, the threads are down here in the web area, whereas 6 of the studs, the either end and in the middle, are the shorter type. So this is one of the deep ones. So they were all very tight. They mostly came out with a big pipe wrench and a cheater pipe on it, because I got it bolted down in the stand. And they were tight. Very, very tight. I mean, these ones, the top of this row is outside of the engine envelope, whereas these 5 on the inside are inside the valve cover. So these typically are easier to undo, and even these were incredibly tight. So I really think that somebody just reefed these down really hard, which you don't need to do. You definitely want to use anti-seize, and you want to anti-seize these surfaces too, so they won't stick on the block or the head. And you just run them down till they touch. It's fine. That's all they need. Anyway, so you can see there's some scale buildup in this, and I'll get in there with a wire brush and I'll clean this up. But this is not bad. That a lot of the time the back here is all silted in, and there's a little bit, but I've seen it up halfway up the liners before. So you can tell, you get an engine and you open this drain plug up and it won't drain. That's exactly what it is. Sometimes you can get in there with a bit of coat hanger or something and knock it clean and get the block to drain. But a lot of the time these cars, people never bother to clean them. So anyway, so that's where we are with that. So that's all good. And then we've been working on the frame as well. So I've got it all painted, and I've started assembling things. And got the upper A-arms all done, and with the new pivots, and we put polyurethane bushings in. So I got both sides of that done. And we also got the new rear springs and polyurethane bushings in the back of that, silent blocks in the front that came with the springs, and those will be good for that. So it's looking good. There's a few runs on this as I put the paint on pretty heavy. I wasn't really being that careful. So I may sand them out a little bit. I can always just touch it up with some black spray paint. Been using VHT epoxy black, which I really like. It seems to really hold up well. Dennis also found the missing crossbar in the back of the shed, so that was great. So that's getting painted now. So that's the end of today's adventure. I'm going to go do the other side up, and I'll get that, start putting that other side of that suspension together, and we start getting in on that. We'll make another video, but that's all for now. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.